Welcome to the Bible Forum. It is Sunday, March 26th. It's a late start to the Bible Forum tonight because of technical problems. We had our problems last week. Maybe we're going to have them again this week. I really don't know. But I got a full quiver. I got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to talk to you about tonight. We're going to talk about healthcare, national healthcare. That was the big issue this week, and so we're going to start off with that as we get started. I've entitled it, "And Jesus Said Unto Paul Ryan." It's a little tongue-in-cheek sarcasm. You'll understand why as we get down the road. After that, I want to go back and look at some of the events that took place in our world, a rundown on current events as they shape our culture, our world, and our lives. And then, as promised, last week I mentioned that Israel was at the point where this was their 70th year back in the land, and they really want to build this temple. This would be the third temple. And so we're going to look at what the Bible says and look at some of the events that are happening over there. We'll take a look at Ezekiel 36, which really doesn't have to do with the temple. But there is a fulfillment of prophecy relative to that passage, and we'll look at that. And then we'll look at the end of Europe. I think we're watching it. I think it's coming unglued. I have no idea how it's going to work. This is Israel and Syria and the immigrants, the migrants, Turkey. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff here, and we're going to talk about that. Along with that, we're going to jump ahead a little into the book of the Revelation, chapter, I think it's 6 or 7, and behold the black horse. The black horse is indicative of global famine, and so we're going to be looking at that tonight in terms of Argentina. If you want to see what it's going to be like when we get to that point in the Great Tribulation, take a look at Argentina. And then we're going to hop across to another hemisphere and look at Iran and North Korea. With China, there's nuclear cooperation between North Korea and Iran, at least tentative. They're talking. And of course, in the process, China is pushing back. We are in the process of putting some serious, heavy military materiel in that area. We're talking big stuff. And a lot of more people and ships and bombers and stuff like that. China's not happy. We'll look at what that means. And then we're going to look at a plan to destroy America. That's a lengthy list, too much to go into here. And then finally, if I'm still awake, I'm going to tell you why it is that we have the problems we have with our health and with our bodies and with our lives. To put it simply, we are built to work. And if we don't work, we get sick and die. Oh, rising healthcare costs, all this fixation on healthcare, that's what this is about in a secondary sense. But now on to the healthcare legislation that died this week. You were paying attention. What did you think was going to happen? Is there a legitimate effort to fix this monstrosity? Or was it simply to modify it? And what exactly was the modification? It was a socialist program. One that robs individuals of choice and initiative in favor of government control. That's what national health care is in any form. And where does that take you? We'll just look around. Look around the world. We see it in every communist country. In every communist country, the mantra is, I can't do anything unless the government helps me. Why not? Well, in our country, it's because we've been coddled and protected, and to a large extent stifled for the last 70 years. California Senator Kamala Harris, who happens to be a Democrat from California, took to the Twitter universe last Saturday to share her view that health care is not a privilege, but rather a right. She says, here's what I believe. Health care is a right. It's not a privilege. RT, she says, if you agree. That's Twitter talk. The tweet comes as the nation continues to debate which direction the healthcare system in America should go. Republicans recently introduced a bill to replace Obamacare. No, they didn't. They introduced a bill to modify it. They pledged to replace it. But that's not what they were doing this time around. Democrats, on the other hand, continue to push for a healthcare system similar to the socialist systems we find in Europe. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders regularly pushed for a single-payer Medicare-type system. Still, healthcare is not a legal right in America, like it is in many other first world countries. And that's mostly because simply declaring it a right doesn't solve the problem of who's going to pay for it. Because healthcare still costs money, whether you pay for it or I pay for yours or the government pays for all of ours, and then they raise our tax. Somebody's paying for this. Harris's constituents were quick to inform her of that fact on Twitter. They responded to her, "This is a right," asking, "Are you going to pay for it? Then I'll send you the bill for my right." What's another name for national health care? It's socialism. Socialism, socialistic philosophy, violates the very core in our values, in our founding principles, in our founding documents, the concept of individual responsibility, the principle of personal accountability. Why? Because it contributes to our dependence on government, or at least on others. What undermines individuality and initiative, whatever it may be, ultimately weakens us. Am I my brother's keeper? A question asked by a murderer. His name was Cain. And it begs the answer, yes, I am my brother's keeper. I may not do, say, or willingly participate in my brother's destruction, but that does not abrogate my responsibility. At the same time, there's a sense in which I am not my brother's keeper. The Bible says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, if a man will not work, he should not eat. Why? To learn an important lesson. Well, what if I can't afford health insurance? Then get another job. You say, well, I can't get another job. Then do without. It's called personal responsibility. It's the way everybody lived in this country for generations until about 1960. Under God's law, no one was guaranteed food, let alone health care. There were provisions for the elderly, but even that was not a state thing. It was primarily a family thing and then later a temple thing. However, I know where you can get $100,000 worth of health insurance for $45 a month right now. You say, what? $100,000 worth of health insurance for $45 tomorrow, right now. If you keep that policy for a year, next year the payout doubles to $200,000. If you continue to keep it for the next 6 years after that, a total of 7 years, I believe, it will increase to a value of $1 million. $45 a month. You go to the hospital, you have a huge $50,000 bill. In this particular scenario, you would be responsible to pay the first $5,000. And they would pay everything else. You say, well, I don't have $5,000. Okay. Then you can pay $85 a month. And you will only have to put out $1,000. I don't have $1,000. Well, then you can pay $150 a month. And the deductible drops to $500. And that's for every member of your family up to 3. You got 12 kids. You only pay for 1. Mom, dad, and 1 child. Today. Well, what about pre-existing conditions or issues that exceed my limit? Well, they have another policy for that. They call it the Brothers Keeper Ministry. It's a quarterly assessment. Goes into a pool to pay those costs. In 10 years, it has never cost me more than $25 every 3 months. Never more than that. Sometimes it was free. Sometimes it was only $5. Well, what if that's still not enough? Well, then there's a prayer page in their monthly publication. They list your need. Folks, send money if they can. See, there's the catch. You must be able to verify your membership or regular attendance at a church, a real church. Why? Well, because Christians tend not to do drugs or sleep around so as to get destructive diseases or ruin their liver and health with alcohol or burn their brains with drugs or crash into people with their cars under the influence of either or both. The world is coming unglued. The policy I have is a company called Christian Healthcare Ministries. There's at least one other out there that's every bit as good, and I think there's a third. But it's for people who live a safe, sane, decent lifestyle. That's not the majority. National health care is about people living a life of irresponsibility or destruction and then having other people pay for their sin. And that, my friends, is not a government responsibility. Which means it's my responsibility. I go out and live that kind of a life and I destroy my body, that's on me. If we have a national health care policy, if we have something as big a fallback as this thing is, then I don't learn anything. Nobody has to change their lifestyle. Nobody has to grow up and be responsible. Are you getting it? What'd your grandparents do? What'd your great-grandparents do for health care? Primarily, they worked hard. Hard work is good for the body. But they also did not abuse their bodies with drugs and such. And those who did had names like bum, ne'er-do-well, stigmas they had to earn. And when your great-grandparents got old, could no longer function, there were old folks' homes, or there was the back bedroom. The family kicked in, they took care, they made sure that this could be done. They didn't know about surgeries and such. They didn't have open heart surgeries and cancer cures and all of that stuff. Only potions and salves, and they managed. Obamacare, the American Health Care Act, both of them are socialism. And socialism used to be a bad word, cousin to communism. Attacks against human responsibility and individual effort. In short, attacks against God and against His Word. Who would do a thing like that? The enemy of all things good and godly. His name? Lucifer, Satan. Dick Morris came out later in the week when this whole thing was unfolding, and he said Trump is quite right when the president finally said, we're done with it. Didn't have enough Republican votes to get it out of the House. He said, we're done. We're moving on to the budget. Maher said he was right to do that. First of all, because Obamacare is failing, it will not last another year, maybe two, if somebody's careful. You do realize that the Obama administration was stealing money from other budgets to prop this thing up. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Insurers are pulling out. People are not signing up. The risk pool is getting worse. Premiums are going to start rising. The programs won't exist in another year or so. And then both parties, he said, will be forced to move for a replacement. Secondly, he says endless haggling was not the way to handle this House. Only by taking a firm stand, the firm stand that he's now taken, does he manage to keep his credibility and the ability to pass his agenda. I have no idea where our nation is going, but it's not going in the right direction. This is encouraging that we don't have a future of socialistic medicine. But trust me, we will.